Welcome back to Moving the Needle. I'm Chris Fink. I'm the founder of the MedSpa Agency, author of The Patient Magnet, and host of Moving the Needle. And today, we're going to be moving into the third stage of the Patient Magnet. This is the series about the Patient Magnet. This is episode 3. In case you missed some of the other ones, you might want to go back to episodes 1 and 2 in this mini-series. But in this series, we're talking about stage 3 today, and it's the stage that creates the most financial stability long-term for your practice, the most predictable revenue, and the highest long-term profitability inside your practice. And that is, you may have guessed it, retention. Now, if you want to build a practice that does not rise and fall with the volatility of ad performance, if you want stable months instead of unpredictable swings and summer slumps, if you want a practice that compounds its revenue year after year, retention is the lever that's going to make that happen. Now, many owners believe that retention is something that happens naturally. If someone's happy, then they assume that the person will come back. And if the results are good, then the relationship will continue. And why wouldn't it? But the reality is, retention is not luck. It's not a personality trait. It's not a byproduct of good bedside manner. Retention is a system. It's a system that books with clarity. It follows up consistently. It creates reviews and referrals because the patient journey is aligned. And it's a system, in short, that guides people through a long-term plan instead of being a single transaction. Now, today we're going to talk about how exactly to create that system, and it's one of the most valuable assets that a practice can ever build. So let's get into it. Retention is going to outperform acquisition every time. Every practice wants more new patients, and there's nothing wrong with that. New patients are the front door of your business. But new patient acquisition is the most expensive part of your business, and it always has been. Retention is the opposite. Retention is stable, it's profitable, it's efficient, and it produces more lifetime value per hour of effort than anything else in the practice operations. And this is an economic truth, probably across almost every service-based industry. Acquisition creates volume, and retention creates wealth. Acquisition creates volume, retention creates wealth. And when you begin to see this clearly, you understand why the top performing MedSpas do not grow because their ads are the best. They grow because their retention system is the strongest. And here's the simple math behind it. When a patient returns, your acquisition cost drops to 0. Your margin increases because the educational burden is lower. The relationship strengthens because trust compounds. And your schedule stabilizes because you have a predictable cadence built into your treatment categories. Now your cash flow becomes smoother because future revenue is already anchored. And here's the real shift. Retention is not what happens after good marketing. Retention is what makes your marketing worth doing. If retention is weak, CAC or customer acquisition costs feel scary. And if retention is strong, then CAC or customer acquisition feels manageable. Retention is the lever that makes your ad spend seem safe. Now, a lot of med spas can lose retention without realizing it. A lot of practices, they don't lose retention because patients dislike them. They lose retention because the system is unstructured. And the breakdown usually happens in small ways, long before anyone notices a problem. It could be a rushed consult. It could be an unclear treatment plan or a missed follow-up. It could be a provider who forgets to rebook because the room is running behind. A membership mentioned casually instead of placed in a logical pathway in the patient journey. And a patient who leaves thinking they'll call later, and they should have scheduled before they walk out. So the consult, the treatment path, an unclear plan, the follow-ups and the next appointments, those all have to happen systematically. And retention failures are rarely dramatic. they're subtle, and subtle failures create long-term revenue instability. There's four main reasons for those. Again, the clinical experience is rushed or inconsistent. It could be the consult, it could be the treatment itself. And when they feel rushed, patients don't feel confident. And when they lack confidence, they hesitate. And hesitation means that they're not going to continue. They're not going to rebook. That continuity gets broken. And rebooking in some practices feels optional instead of standard. Optional habits create optional results. So rebooking must be treated as part of the care plan. And follow up. If it's vague or inconsistent, if patients leave without clarity, they tend to drift. And drifting patients weaken your economics. So there needs to be a continuity pathway. Memberships exist, but maybe they're not integrated correctly. Packages exist, but they don't connect to a long-term care plan. Patients like the practice, but they can't see the journey ahead. If you fix those issues, retention improves usually within weeks. So we've talked about this part here in some of the other episodes, and it's the retention flywheel. And it's rebook, review, referrals. It's the core, really, of episode 3 here. The retention flywheel is simple, but it's super powerful because each part reinforces the next. And that's why it's a flywheel. Rebook leads to more reviews, and reviews lead to more referrals. Referrals bring in patients who retain at a higher rate, and that cycle continues to improve with increasing efficiency. So the flywheel can create compounding momentum inside your patient base. Let's walk through each step, through each piece. So rebook. Rebooking is the foundation of retention. It's not a selling technique. It's leadership. Patients want clarity. They want to understand the plan. They want to know what comes next and why it matters. When providers communicate this clearly, rebooking becomes natural. The structure looks like this. You explain the clinical plan. You explain the timeline. You explain the reason behind the interval. You invite the patient to secure the next appointment, and you let the front desk reinforce that plan. When this becomes a habit and not a suggestion, then your future revenue becomes predictable. Now, reviews are the trust multiplier. They're not just social proof. Reviews are signals of clarity, confidence, and satisfaction. And if you're struggling with reviews, the issue is rarely marketing. It's almost always inconsistency inside the patient experience. The strongest review systems follow 3 fundamental rules. Ask after a positive moment. Give a simple, friction-free link. Make it easy. And keep the team's behavior consistent. Reviews don't just strengthen your brand, they feed the attract stage because patients often make their decision before they ever reach out. Seeing those reviews out there and doing that validation, that's super important. Now, when we get to the referral part, referrals happen naturally when the experience is aligned, communication is clear, the patient feels cared for, and the plan feels purposeful. So you don't need scripts, you need timing, intention, and consistent execution. After a rebooking conversation, when the patient's confident, they're excited, a simple invitation is usually enough. And you could say something like, if someone in your life would benefit from a similar care plan, feel free to send them our way. Referrals should feel earned, not solicited. Now, when you're trying to build a rebooking system that works every time, a predictable rebooking system typically has, you have a clinical plan, you have a timeline, a reason, an invitation, and front desk reinforcement. And when those elements align, then rebooking becomes consistent across all providers, all rooms, and all visit types. It's not about being persuasive. Rebooking is about guiding the patient through the journey that they already want to complete. So next, the reviews. Create a review engine that fuels growth. Reviews influence both retention and acquisition. patients trust what others say about their experience far more than what your practice is going to say about yourself. A strong review engine requires the right moment, a simple process, and team-wide alignment. And when combined with strong rebooking, reviews will grow naturally. And you can make referrals feel natural. They're not salesy. They're a product of trust. When a patient feels cared for, referrals happen. Keep referral language grounded in care, not in promotion. The moment after a strong rebooking conversation is actually one of the highest yield points for referral behavior because the patient feels the clarity and the confidence of structured care. Now, memberships, other continued pathways, there's memberships work when they're integrated into a clinical pathway. Membership without a plan feels kind of like the old coupon books. So with a plan, they're going to feel more like continuity and convenience, value. Use memberships to reinforce the journey, but not replace it. Patients should feel the plan leads naturally into a maintenance structure. And that's how continuity becomes normalized. Now, retention can strengthen your growth engine by stabilizing your lifetime value. And retention stabilizes your schedule. It stabilizes your revenue, stabilizes your lifetime value, stabilizes your client acquisition cost. And honestly, it stabilizes your team and your ability to keep them on the hours, filling rooms, filling chairs with patients who want treatment. It's at the center of the patient magnet because it determines whether your growth becomes predictable. Attract, right? We have attract, convert, retain, amplify. Attract brings people in. Convert earns their confidence. Retain turns that confidence into long-term value. And then amplify becomes possible only when retain is strong. Retention is not the third step, it's the stabilizer of the entire system. If this episode helped you rethink how your practice creates long-term value, subscribe and share it. Like, follow, and share with another med spa owner or manager who wants stability, predictability, and consistent revenue. And if you want a custom blueprint for your med spa, you can book a free strategy session with us. We'll have the links in the show notes. We can take a look at that and map out your patient magnet for your practice. We'll look at your patient journey, we'll look at your systems, your growth goals, and I will show you which retention levers will create the fastest improvements in your practice. Thanks for tuning in and listening to another episode of Moving the Needle. This was episode 3 in the 4-part mini-series about the patient magnet. Be sure to tune in next week for episode 4 where we wrap it up and we bring it all together. Thanks for listening. Until next time, keep moving the needle.